Simon, talk to me about advance rent option. It sounds like it's too good to be true. Talk to me.
That's a very interesting starting point because when we when we had an article published recently in Estate Agent Today telling people about it and inviting them to the event that we're having on the 28th, which by the way I believe you're going to host for us. Thank you very much, Chris. It went out in Letting Agent Today and not Estate Agent Today. It went out
And
in
I must
Letting
stress
Agent
to the
Today.
record, I'm donating my appearance fee to charity on that one.
Okay,
It's important to say that.
that's good, Chris. Good. I'll match what you contribute. So what I was saying was that we had an article introducing the event and what the ARO is in Letting Agent Today, which obviously appeals to letting agents, and Landlords Today that obviously appeals to landlords. And I didn't really know. I didn't have any assumptions as to what kind of reaction we would get. I especially wasn't expecting people to write scam in capital letters.
Oh, but I mean, okay, just before, some people might actually not know what AR advanced rent option is. So let's just very quickly tell people what it is first, and then you can talk about the reaction and whether it is a scam or not.
Okay, so using our primary tenancy model, which is something that not everyone will understand, but basically where we act as agent and tenant, so we're effectively subletting. Our business model allows us to do the ARO because we become the tenant and we sublet the property. And because we do it that way, we can actually advance a year's rent up front if we want. I came up with the
So
idea.
it's rent to rent.
It isn't really rent to rent as most people understand it, because in rent to rent there's usually four parties in the transaction. That's where it all goes wrong. So you have the landlord, you have the agent, you have the rent to renter, and then you have the tenant. Whereas with us, there's still three parties. There's just the landlord, there's us acting as agent and tenant, and then there's the tenant. Three parties in the transaction.
Yes.
So what that does is it has a load of benefits and flexibilities, and one of them struck me, which was that as I'm your tenant, there's nothing to stop me paying you a year's rent up front, hence the advance rent option. Now I've got my tenant and I then collect my rent back monthly.
Okay.
Obviously I get my reward from doing that in terms of my margin. I'm offering you something which is our competitors are not offering.
Yeah, but hold on a second. You're going to offer me below a market rent, aren't you?
So we mirror our normal management service fees. They're exactly the same.
No, forget the fees for a second. Let's talk about the headline rent. You're going to offer the landlord let's say it's a property that's £1,000 a month.
Okay, so the net rent to the landlord will be the same net rent they would have got had they used us as the managing agent. Identical, no difference at
So
all.
because there are agents, quite big agents out there that would basically take it on at 1,000
And pay you 700.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're
It's
not
not
doing
that.
that. Under the primary tenancy,
You've got to pay market rent.
we market rent minus our normal charges.
Forget the charges. For a
Okay,
second.
no, market rent. Then,
Market
yes,
rent.
absolutely.
And then you're going to take your normal charge out.
Yeah.
So what's that then? 20%?
Well, it depends what services. We've got a basic full management fee, which is 15% plus VAT if you're normal full management.
Well, that's pretty. It's at the top end, but it's not silly.
Well, I mean,
it's not silly.
In London, they do 17% plus VAT. They do 18% plus
So that's
VAT.
not silly.
Not silly at all.
15 plus VAT. That's not bad.
Yeah. Under the profit rent model, we don't charge VAT, obviously, but nevertheless, if you look at it like for like, 18% is what you're going to pay, 15% plus VAT. We will then offer you other options which we can do under the primary tenancy, which we can't do with standard agency. For example, can offer you a rent guarantee, but it's a rent guarantee from me.
Well, you're paying it up front, so it is a rent guarantee.
But we're moving from the primary tenancy to the ARO. So the ARO is only possible because of the primary tenancy. So under the primary tenancy, I can still pay you monthly, and we still do. Most of our properties are not on an ARO basis. But if you want the money up front, you can only have it because of the primary tenancy. Because we couldn't pay you rent up front if we weren't your tenant.
I'm sorry, Simon. I'm not getting what this primary tenancy thing's all about. Could you explain it to me, because I'm a bit thick?
Okay. I'm sure you're not, Chris. So in a conventional agency relationship, there are three parties to the transaction. There's the landlord, the agent, and the tenant. And with the primary tenancy, it's exactly the same. There's the landlord, there's us as agent, but we also become the tenant. So we take on the responsibilities of the landlord and we sublet to the incumbent tenant. And that's the primary tenancy in a nutshell. The difference is it's a profit rent model rather than a fee-based model. So instead of earning a fee, we earn a profit. But if you take it on a like-for-like basis, if we charge exactly the same to the landlord, you as the landlord don't get charged any more, but it completely changes the relationship, and it opens the way. So if you actually look upon that as the base of a pyramid, yes, we've now got two business models. One business model is agency, and the second business model is primary tenancy, trademarked by the way. And so under agency, you know exactly how it operates. You as the landlord and the agent are jointly responsible for all of the regulations and to look after the tenant who's the incumbent tenant. Under the primary tenancy, we take all of the responsibility away from you because we become your tenant, and then we actually become the landlord to our tenant. But because of the way that the business model works, then we get a lot more flexibilities that come out from that. So for example, now I'm your landlord, you're my tenant, I can say to you, my agreement's a bit more flexible than most. I'll give you the option so that if you go off sick or have an accident, you don't have to pay your rent for up to a year. How do you like the sound of that? Yes, no. I can give you the option of saying to you, if you don't want to pay 5 weeks rent as a deposit, we'll offer you a zero deposit option. And there's no need to go and buy an insurance policy or go to another provider.
Because you are the landlord.
Exactly. So we've created our tenancy in a much more flexible and adaptable way. But it's also got huge advantages for the regulators because we are a massive landlord with thousands of tenants. So they've only got one big landlord to regulate, which they like. The tenant benefits because they have a fully compliant landlord who obeys all the rules to the best of their ability. And we benefit because we have much more flexibility with our business model, and that's where the ARO comes in. So we've been operating the basic primary tenancy with all its attendant benefits now since 2008, and we've been developing it, and we've gone through the ombudsman, we've gone through the courts, and we've gone through, you know, the tax man. We've done everything correctly, we've done everything properly, and we've gradually developed the model. And then last year, I was thinking, as one does, I've got the tenant fee ban coming, how am I going to survive, how am I going to replace all this money I'm going to lose? And I thought, what would happen if I offered my landlords a year's rent in advance, even where I'm collecting the money monthly, which I'm very lucky, I've got the resources to be able to do, okay? And I thought to myself, well, as a conventional agent, I couldn't do that, could I? Because actually, it would be a kind of loan, it would be regulated, there'd be big hurdles to jump, very, very complicated. I think to myself, well, actually, as I'm their tenant, yeah, and they're my landlord, if I want to advance them a year's rent in advance, there's no real problem with that. And I can then come to a flexible agreement. I can say, well, actually, I'll guarantee you that year's rent, which we can do, and that depends on the profit margin that we go for. All of it is mirrored, yeah? Or I can say to you, well, actually, if I don't get all my money back from this tenant, I'll extend the time period, yeah, until I do get it back. Very flexible, very adaptable. So we've been piloting that, and that's been very successful. We've already done nearly £500,000 worth of business on it prior to launch, official launch, so soft launch wise. I think we're on our 35th or 36th deal at the moment.
Right,
okay. But there's also other things that we can do under the primary tenancy. So for example, we offer the primary tenancy with or without a rent guarantee. So we can say to you, we'll pay your rent, but only if our tenant pays us, or we'll pay your rent even if our tenant doesn't pay us. And we can offer other flexibility, so we can say to our tenant, as we do, you're my tenant, if you go sick or have an accident, we can give you a rent holiday till you get better. We can say to our tenant, actually, we can run you with a zero deposit option without involving a third party. So we can do things like that. So our primary tenancy also means that when I have to evict a tenant, if they do bad things, I'm evicting them as their landlord, you're my landlord, you don't have to get involved. My tenant needs to know about me, but they don't actually need to know about you. From a regulatory point of view, the regulator's dealing with one massive landlord, not thousands of little ones when it comes to us, yeah? So there are so many benefits, in fact, to the primary tenancy that I tried to market it to the industry at an early point, because I conceived it in 2007-8. About 2010, after I'd worked out most of the bugs, I started going out and talking to people about it. I got a lot of people beyond first base. A lot of people said yes, they wanted to go with it, but no one ever did. And the reason why? Well, because I call it geographical inertia. You know, you're doing something you've always done it that way. I'm suggesting that you change your entire business model because it's better. You're going to give a better service to the tenant, you're going to give a better service to the landlord, you're going to make more money, everything's better.
So in a nutshell, the agent becomes the tenant and then sublets out.
In essence.
And you get a full fee.
Yeah, well, you get whatever you decide. You're the boss. You're the agent. You decide what you're going to go for.
So
we go for it in a certain way. But if an agent decided to operate it differently, there'd be nothing to stop them.
So what's stopping them setting up their own model without using you?
Well, it took us 3 years to iron out all the bugs, and we also have we've finessed a lot of these things, and we know how to do them. And the ARO is another example of how that works. I mean, what the ARO is doing for landlords is helping them because they are getting the money up front, and they can pay their school fees with it, they can build an extension, they can build their portfolios, they can do whatever they want with that money. From our point of view, and people say, well, where does the money come from? Yeah? And I'm lucky enough to be able to fund it for Choices myself. I can't do that for the whole industry, obviously, but I am in talks with people who are very interested in it as a concept. But from a Choices point of view, it's helped us win business from our competitors. So the margin, although we're not charging any more, actually we don't offer discounts, right, with the ARO. And for that reason, our average margin on the ARO is actually about 4% better than it would be on normal business anyway. So there's something in it for me, but the real great thing is we're using it to retain our existing landlords when we need to. We're using it to attract new landlords. And an even better one is this. For every landlord that inquires about it and is interested in it, only about 1 in 5 or 6 actually want it in the end. But you've got through the door. So it's a great door opener. So
why don't more people take it up?
As I said, in order to operate it, you'll have to operate a model similar to ours, or Northwoods, for example. They could do it, I suppose. And in order to do that, you'd have to learn that business model because it creates a different relationship. Bear in mind, we've been through the ombudsman, we've been through the courts, we've been through the tax man, we've been through everybody. Yeah, I've spent probably 60 grand on due diligence over the years. So we've got all that in a box. Okay. Now,
is that what you're selling to agents then?
I'm considering it. I'm not actually made a decision. So I've got different channels. I come from an insurance background. In the insurance industry, they had direct sales and they had broker sales. Yeah, I see this as very similar. So I think on the one hand,
because there's a lot of people out there sitting on money, not getting any interest. In the city, this is a way for them to earn money, isn't it?
Yeah, and we already have a nationwide asset management part of our business. So we already manage properties all over the country. So theoretically, if I financed it, a reasonable rate, we could become the biggest letting agent in the country if we weren't opposed. Alternatively, I could do all that myself, or I can make it available through estate agents, but they'd have to be approved estate agents. They'd have to basically, be vetted to make sure that we trusted them and we believed that they could use it.
And basically, what's in it for them is full fat fees.
They make more money for doing a better job with no additional costs. And all we would want, actually, we haven't worked out what we want actually, but to give you an example, if you take our approach and without overcharging anybody and just mirroring it, for example, our tenant rent guarantee, if you mirror the cost of that against buying sickness and accident insurance, for example, yeah, the ZDO, yeah, the cost of buying that from one of the many providers that are out there. What you're doing is using our services, that you're actually retaining the margin for those products. So the effect on your overall gross margin is vast.
Yeah, but letting agents don't like change.
They don't. And actually, if you're a CRM provider, you're finding that as well. People do not like change. So what I think is that the big catalyst for change is the tenant fee ban, right? Because everyone's talked about it. It's a big deal. I've got an article coming out. It'll already be out by the time this interview takes place. But I said, well, the interesting thing is we've had June. It's out the way now. So we've had the first month of the tenant fee ban. What's actually happened? Well, I've got a lot of rumours. I've been told 20% of the income's gone, and there's lots of players that are wounded. What I can tell you that's fact is what's happened to us. Actually, what's happened to us. So if we look at what happened to us in June this year versus June last year, 2018, so our income, just Choices, not the other brands, was £303,000 in fees last year. and we had a certain portfolio. So compared to this year, our portfolio has grown a very small amount by 5, but we think that most agents have lost portfolio. And our income, we lost £24,000 in fees straight off the bat, and we've got more to lose as time goes by. And our income this year went up from 303 to 340 something. Okay, so that has come as a direct result of making a few tweaks here and there on fees, principally the ARO, which has helped us to acquire business, and it's more profitable.
It's been approved by all the regulatory bodies that need to approve it.
It doesn't need approval by any regulatory bodies, because I am your tenant and I am paying you advance rent. So
what's different
a regulatory
different
issue? By the way, if you were to try and advance money to a landlord as a conventional agent, that would have to be a loan, and it would in fact be regulated.
So what's the difference between the ARO and, say, the Northwoods model?
Well, the ARO is nothing. The ARO, again, is separate from the primary tenancy. So I think we have to get this very, very clear. The primary tenancy business model, is where I am your tenant.
But I thought that's what the Northwoods model is, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. So their model is very similar to ours. The only difference is the way they've done it is through franchising. The way they've done it is focusing on fully guaranteed rent, and their margins, for example, for a long time were 27%, whereas ours were always a lot less and a lot more flexible. But yes, in many ways, we came up alongside them. We took a different route, but the ARO is an extension of.
Also, the Northwoods is a guaranteed rent, whilst the ARO is more allowing them. You can offer a guarantee, but you can also offer a lump up front if required.
All the ARO is we are offering up to years rent up front, and we're able to do that because of the primary tenancy model, where we're your tenant and we can offer you that money up front.
But the Northwoods is a primary tenancy model, isn't it?
And they could, well, it's a similar model, and they could offer an ARO.
But you can only have it if you're a Northwoods franchise.
Well, I mean, they don't offer an ARO at the moment, as far as I know, but they could copy it, yes, theoretically, if they could get their head around it.
Where do agents find out more information about this? Because, as I said, you haven't decided whether you're going to open it up or not to the market.
Well, I mean, part of the reason for the launch event is to invite a bunch of agents, get them to the event, and actually find out, what sort of response I get. If I get heckled and people start screaming "scam" from the terraces, I might not feel too good about it. But at the end of the day, I'm in a position.
But didn't you have some agents on Vanessa Warwick's website actually give you an apology?
Well, actually, there was some people that were, because I tried to do a balanced reply as opposed to getting all angry about it. I simply said, look, there's room in the market for everybody. 50% of landlords don't use an agent for anything. Of those landlords, some of them are highly competent. They do a fantastic job. They get the maximum rent possible. They never get voids, and they deal with all problems themselves. But there are also a group of do-it-yourself landlords that do it very badly. They don't charge the right rent. They get into trouble. They end up costing themselves a fortune in legal fees, and they don't know what to do. Okay, so that's a fact. And within the letting agency sphere, there's good letting agents and bad lettings agents. Now, by actually balancing it off and actually making it clear that it's not a scam, it's an option for certain people that want to use it, and by making it clear that actually my view is anyway that DIY rarely beats the professional. In fact, it never does. Okay, and that my view is that the many articles I've read and research I've read that indicates that actually of those 50% of landlords, on average, they get less rent, they have more voids, and they suffer greater problems. So if you're that one agent, that I spoke to a landlord recently. He's 71 now. His wife's 72, and they manage, I think, about 32 properties between them. Now, he wants to retire, and he wanted to sell. And interestingly, he wanted to sell for 10% above market value because he felt that the person would get the money back within 2 years from the rent. So I had to explain that's actually not the way it works. I said to him instead, why do you want to sell? What are you going to do with the money? He said, I don't want to sell for that reason. He said, I just want to retire. So if you think about what he was saying, I work full time managing 32 properties with my wife. I mean, okay, if you're prepared to devote yourself to do that and learn it, good luck to you, power to your elbow. But I've always used agents, always. Even as an agent, I would never dream of going and selling a property of my own privately, or going to a letting agent privately, or negotiating on fees. I want them to do the best job possible for me.
Simon, that's been excellent. If you are interested, what's the date of the event?
28th of August.
2019. Where are you holding it?
Royal Institute of Great Britain.
Okay. And how do they get information on that?
They can go online on our website,
Which is?
choices.co.uk. There's a landing page. They can contact me on LinkedIn. They can use my email address, which is simon.shinerock@gmail.com. Really, I'm sure they'll find a way of getting to us.
Boys and girls, I've not been paid to do this video, and like I said at the event itself, I am donating my appearance fee for charity. I've always held Simon Shinerock in high esteem, and Nat Daniels and the EA Today crew, hence why I'm going along that. I think it's an option you need to consider. Have a look, go with open eyes and see if it's for you. Can't really say more than that, can we?
I don't think so, Chris.
Cheers.